Hey guys, welcome back to the GSTL. It's Saturday, 1:10 p.m. Korean Standard Time, and we have 2 more team matches for you today.
Today is going to be a really exciting match, I feel. We have Axiom-Acer facing Prime, starting off with a Terran versus Terran in today's match, and this should really be a good day. Both teams so far looking pretty decent in the season, having a couple of successes, but also, of course, especially Axiom-Acer with an all-kill against them in the last match, are hungry for another win.
Yeah, you know, Prime didn't have the easiest time against NSOSA in their previous match either, so both teams really hungry for a victory today to get that momentum back.
Yeah, Prime is the only team that lost to NSOSA so far.
Very true. And you can see we have a lot of fans in the studio here on this Saturday afternoon. Very enthusiastic ones. There's Mia. Crank.
They are having a lot of fun. We were bantering a little bit earlier. You can see MMA, and I asked Scarlett, by the way, with her new hairstyle.
Yeah.
But MMA, we asked him earlier, okay, when are you going to to Europe? And he said, yeah, I'm gonna leave in 2 days. So Scarlett at the same time just turned around and asked him, so how long are you gonna stay in Europe for? And he was like, well, I don't know yet. And Crank immediately chipped in. He's like, yeah, depends on when exactly how he's doing. It depends on results. So I just turned around to Crank and was like, so you're coming back in 2 or 3 days? And he just starts laughing, completely cracks up, and the entire team is having a blast. We're of course only joking a little bit.
Yeah.
But MMA going to participate in WCS Europe, and I'm really excited to see how he can do that.
Yeah, I am as well. You know, a lot of players are traveling around different parts of the globe for different events. For example, DreamHack just recently finished in Europe, and then you've got players who are able to play in WCS Europe from Korea, WCS NA from Korea, and of course, you know, vice versa is also possible. So we've really got a global tournament here. But going back into the team league, both of these teams are in a decent spot so far. Neither of them, you know, at the bottom of the league. They're not punching bag teams, really. But they really need that win today to get the momentum back, because coming off of a loss is never something that you can feel comfortable with.
We are roughly midway through the season, so every win counts. And currently we're looking at 2 teams who have 2 wins and 1 loss. We're having a quick look at the results, give you an update on the last few matches that we had here at the GSTL.
Yeah, yesterday was a slaughter. NSOSA got all killed by Hurricane, and it was Class 5. He got 4 kills in a row, taking out Salvation, Tassar, Jakshi, and in our final game, I don't know what happened, but Hurricane triumphed over Sanai.
Yeah, Sanai showed a lot of promise in the past. At least he showed that he has the talent to pull it off, but yesterday he completely fell apart. That was a very weird build that he tried to execute here, and Hurricane just, he completely took him down.
He blew him over, man.
Yeah, there was no way for him.
It was pretty one-sided, and a very tough match for NSOSA to have to take, and you can see they're down at the bottom with 1 and 3, -9 indicator. Currently, the 2 teams we have participating today, 5th and 6th place, Axiom-Acer and Prime, -2 and -1.
And I actually think I misspoke earlier. I said that both teams have 2 wins and only 1 loss, but that's not true. As you can see, Prime has 1 win and 2 losses so far, so they definitely need a win today. They were a bit shaky in this season, and of course the loss against NSOSA is really, really, that's something that shouldn't happen, especially when NSOSA is now starting to become the punching bag of the league.
Yeah.
Which is very sad, of course, for the Mr. Hoseo team, but still, Prime, they have to step it up here a bit.
Absolutely. And if Axiom-Acer wins, they'll be the first team to take 3 wins, and they will claim the first place spot, at least temporarily.
Yep.
Here's our breakdown of the races. You can see no Axiom-Acer players deciding to participate in WCS Korea, so they're all Code B.
Yeah, that was a very conscious decision when it was announced that they have to lock into one of the regions. They decided to not participate in the qualifier for Korea. Therefore, we don't have a single player in Code A or Code S. Whereas on the other hand, the Prime team with 3 Code S players, 1 player in Code A, and the rest of them all down in Code B.
Yep, very true. Prime always been a pretty strong team in the individual leagues, with Marine King notably getting 2nd place in the GSL. Well, and also in a World Championship.
Talking about Marine King, here we have him with the Prime team. He's going to be the starting player today for his team. And we have a Warhound picture. This is, of course, a bit of a highlight reel from the last few matches that they played.
Yep, Bjorn was able to get an all-kill this season, so that put Prime starting out in a great place this season. But he did have some trouble with Warhound there, as you could see. Yep. Had to tell that dog to shut up.
Warhound was really furious at him.
But he really wanted to come out.
That was the start of the Prime team into the season. We had them with 4 wins, Bjorn with the all-kill, of course. That was really well played, and it was a great performance. But then, there we have him. But then later on, Prime did not do that well anymore. They lost to Startail, and then they lost to NSOSA, so now they are eager for a win, eager to tie it up with the 2-2 in the rankings.
Yeah, you know, no shame in losing to Startail. They're one of the favorites to win perhaps this season, but losing to NSOSA was a really, really rough team match for them, and they've got to take that win today.
Yeah, Axiom-Acer, on the other hand, they did really well coming into the season. People were worried a little bit about them as they lost in the preseason very early. But then they took a win against MVP. They took a win against Incredible Miracle of all teams. But in the third match, they got all killed by FX Open. And this definitely left a few scars. So today they are back and they want to come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, they really, really do. I'm excited for this match. This is going to be, I feel, much, much closer than the match we saw yesterday.
It should be. I talked to both teams. I said no all kills today, and they both started laughing and said like, okay. So I think we are going to have a good day.
Let's hope so. Here's the Prime team, all their players in the roster for today. You can see some of our players like Amir, Terror, they haven't really come out just yet. They haven't really shown their stuff because Prime has had a little bit of a rougher time this season. They can't really put players out like that right now.
Yeah, with the best of 7 system, you also have to be a little bit more careful who you put out as the second or the third player. So Prime has definitely adapted to this. You can see the Prime coach here and the rest of the players in the backstage area.
Yeah. Just watching TV. Yeah, watching themselves.
Marine King's looking at this like, oh my god, I look good.
I wish he nodded or something when he said that. Yeah, this is the Prime team, of course, sitting in the makeup room, and you know, we could see any one of these players. Of course, we're going to see Marine King no matter what, but here's the lineup for Axiom-Acer. You can see that it's a pretty small lineup when compared to Prime, but a lot of strong players, a lot of former Slayers players in this team.
And it's a strong one, and it's really funny. I talked a lot to Scarlett in the last 2 weeks, and they were actually fighting about who is going to play who on the Prime roster. So they really prepared for a few players. We'll talk about this in detail a little bit more later on, because we obviously can't spoil any strategies or whatever. But it was really funny that they were fighting to face the strongest players here. Here you can see Scarlett with a new hairstyle.
Yeah, new hairstyle looking very good. It's like a new person in there. And Ryung looking very uninterested in being on camera.
She was a little bit shocked that the entire hair thing cost a little bit more than she was used to. Apparently in Korea. I mean, Wolf, you can probably enlighten us. I have no experience with this, but it looks a little bit like hairstyling is a bit expensive.
It just depends on the type of place you go to. You know, if you want to go to an English-speaking place, which she probably did, those places are generally more expensive. But if you go to a place where they only speak Korean, like I do, it's pretty reasonably priced. Just depends on where you're going and what you're doing. She had a pretty massive change there, so I could expect it could be a little bit costly. I see that.
She told me that it takes her about 45 minutes with the hair straightener to get the hair just right. That's why I shave my head.
Yeah, you know, hair straightening can be
5 minutes in the bathroom, guys. 5 minutes. Just saying.
Hair shaving versus hair straightening, a lot of different levels of effort go into those two things.
Here we have our both teams for the day, and this is going to be a good day. Terran versus Terran is our starting match, and compared to Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, the mirror match in TBT is really something that excites me a lot. A lot of very crisp build, very technical builds, and when we have these two players facing off against each other, we can expect a lot of fireworks.
Flash versus Innovation in the Group of Death was an awesome Terran versus Terran series we got to see, and I think we might see some of those similar strategies we saw in that series come to life here in this first game. Prime getting together, getting pumped up for this match. It's a very important one for them. They really, really want to take this win today.
You are so right. I mean, if they lose today, they will be 1-3 in the ranking. So that is definitely not what you want. They would suddenly be at the bottom together with NSOSA. So they try to avoid that at all costs. But Axiom-Acer, they've shown against strong teams that they can pull off a victory.
There's something about the Axiom-Acer, you know, the team. They have the shirts. I don't want to call them a jersey. It is a jersey, but it's a shirt that goes really well with the Acer green jersey that MMA is wearing. They just fit. It just goes together nicely. I don't know how to explain it, but I like it.
The one thing that just impresses me a lot about the Axiom-Acer team is that they are a team that has a very good atmosphere in the team house, apparently. They don't have a coach. They have only Crank, who's acting as a player coach. But they don't have any problems with being motivated for their matches and training hard. So that's something that really only works if you have a good atmosphere in the team.
Yeah, the team feels very grassroots almost, and it's really cool to see that they can get themselves together and do so well in the team league in their first appearance here. It's kind of crazy.
They're just pushing each other.
There's Mia again. We call him Gullum because of his pose in the booth.
Mia, a player that we've seen several times this season, he didn't have a single win just yet, and the problem about Mia really seems to be that he has nerve issues playing in the studio. From what the team is telling us, he's really strong when he plays in the team house and when he is able to play in an online environment, but as soon as he's sitting in the booth, things for some reason just don't go.
Yeah, his last game he played in the GSTL, he looked very, very frustrated after his loss, very emotional, and you could tell that he was not playing his best. He really, really struggled in that Zerg versus Terran. Very, very tough game that they lost there. I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to come out today for both teams, though. We've got a really diverse lineup in Prime, and Axiom-Acer has that lineup that you just know with a bunch of familiar faces. Every single player on their bench is a strong one, and they just kind of have to choose the order and the maps they come out on.
That's definitely right. What I really want to see is if we might see Mia again, because he tries to defeat this curse. He's 0-7, I think, currently in the GSTL overall, also, of course, including his time on Slayers. But he needs to change that at some point, and maybe if he gets his first wins, the floodgates will finally open. He can perform here as well as he can in the team house. That would certainly benefit the team greatly. They need to have a little bit more diversity here in their lineup. So far, the Zergs only represented by 2 players, and one of them is struggling a bit in the team league, so that's definitely something where they would be quite happy about changing that.
Yeah, this is true. I'm really looking forward to seeing Mia if he does come out. I think now that he's lost enough times in the booth and he's got a great team to support him, I think we're going to see a very different Mia coming out today than the one we saw last time, because you lose that many times, you have that many emotional breakdowns in the booth, you talk to your team about it, eventually you get over it, and this could be his time. We saw players like Creator really struggle in the booth in the past and then eventually get over that.
I'm really interested also who's going to play today for the Prime team. If you look at the lineup and also how they approach the last few team matches, they seem to be a little bit predictable. Terran is, of course, their strong side. They have a lot of good Terran players on the lineup with Marine King, with players like Bjan and Maru. And, of course, there's always Creator as a strong Protoss player, but they seem to be a little bit predictable. So if you're able to take out the Terran players, it's getting a bit rough for them.
Very true. Here's our starting player for Prime. It's Marine King. Somebody who has come out last quite often. His best position, though, is actually coming out third.
Yeah, we had him a couple of times first in this season already. This is the second time that he's the starting player for his team. The last time he started, I think he was against Team Startail, if I'm not mistaken. And he was able to take the... Yeah, it was actually against Golden. He took the win against Golden, but then lost to Avenge.
Yep, I remember this. Marine King, a very strong starting player. He's kind of like a captain in a lot of ways. He's one of the most successful players that Prime has ever seen. And he's starting out against the very good Terran player of his opposing team, which is Ryung.
We have Ryung in the Terran versus Terran, and this is going to be a pretty cool game. Ryung is doing really well this season. Yeah, of course, he lost a few times, but he has more wins than losses in the Team League so far. In 2013, a lot of important points for his team. That was what he could contribute to the rankings. I really like this decision.
Yeah,
it seems that he's a player who feels good coming out as a starting player. So.
Yeah, completely agree. And Ryung is a player who has shown in the past excellent Terran versus Terran. It seemed to be his matchup of choice coming out in the Team League in previous seasons when he was on Slayers, and also, of course, going into this season. So for him, the matchup's got to be feeling pretty comfortable. But the map, that's what's really interesting. We're starting off on Icarus for a TVT, so it's not going to be your normal, everyday average TVT. We could see CC first from both players. We could see a very aggressive gas first because, Marine King may do that because he expects Ryung goes for a command center first or vice versa. So this could be a really interesting, weird TVT on Icarus.
Ryung was the last man standing for Axiom-Acer in the match against Incredible Miracle and then took down not only Lucira but also MC. So definitely a good standing in this season. Now he's up in a Terran versus Terran against Marine King. And I expect a lot from these two players, especially on a map like Icarus. As you just said, it's a map where we see a lot of timings, we see a lot of fast-paced games.
Yeah, most players usually go for a command center first on this map just simply because you want to get those resources at the natural as soon as possible, the high-yield gas and also the rich mineral fields that are there. You get some extra minerals, you get some extra gas a little bit faster than you would on a normal map.
Yeah, we are going to have a crazy day today. I really hope that this is going to be a close series. Our opening match is definitely one that leads us to believe that this is going to be a cool clan war. We have Ryung up versus Marine King. A lot of action already in game one. Both teams really sending out heavy hitters for the first match.
Yeah, really, really heavy hitters. Terran versus Terran specialist Ryung versus near champion Marine King.
And we are jumping into the game right now here at the GSTL 2013 Season 1. Axiom-Acer is up against the Prime team with Marine King and Ryung. brought to you, of course, by Carl and Wolf.
What?
Oh, that has to be the Prime player.
This is the Prime player. This is Marine King. He lifts his command center. He's going straight to the gold patches.
Marine King with a boss mode. Oh my god, I love this. Now we'll just jump in for a second.
Marine King Prime.
Okay, I have to say why I love this so much. This is just his style. This is, of course, the starting play here for the Prime team. Left us speechless here for a second, but his opposing player to the bottom right of the map is, of course, for Axiom-Acer.
Axiom Young.
Okay, Marine King has a history of doing this. There were a lot of maps in the past where there were gold mineral patches. One of the maps, for example, was, and as I was saying...
Metalopolis?
No, Antigua Shipyard.
Oh, Antigua Shipyard
Antigua
as well,
Shipyard was one of those maps where Marine King loved to do this. There were gold mineral patches in the middle of the map, up to the point where the GSL and other leagues started to change that. And Marine King, he has a history of lifting his command center and flying it to the gold mineral patches. And seeing him do this now on a map like Icarus makes me feel so nostalgic. This is actually awesome. This is the Marine King we all love.
Yeah, this is great. I'm just watching the income, and Marine King is closing the gap very, very quickly now, pulling ahead just a little bit. Obviously losing a lot of harvesters for a brief period of time, but now getting the extra patches, microing his SCV as well. And now he's going to have the rich geyser as well, which is really important to note. This is even more important, I think, than the 2 mineral patches, because the mineral patches here are helping him keep even with Ryung, but the gas is where he's going to start to really pull ahead.
And with this build that he chose, or with this opening strategy, you can really see that he immediately made sure that he has on the gold mineral patches 2 SCVs. This is, of course, really important to just maximize the income. Here, once again, we have it on screen. So far, Ryung is still a little bit ahead, but the gas will come into play, as just highlighted by Wolf. So a very interesting opening by Marine King.
Yeah, so to give you guys numbers, every time he takes a trip from the gold mineral patches, that's 7 minerals, and every time he takes one from the rich geyser, it's 6 gas. So he's getting, of course, just a little bit more resources than his opponent right now, especially in gas. He has an insane gas income right now, triple his opponent.
Ryung saw it, and he's just looking at this like, what the heck is going on here? And of course, he realized what was happening. So now he's probably a little bit surprised, and it's going to be interesting to see how Ryung reacts to this.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting.
Because I actually think that he doesn't know how this is going to change all the timings. I mean, why would he? This is something that we've certainly seen for the first time.
Yeah, this is very new, very unusual, and Marine King goes into a Reaper opening here. Let's see if he starts a second Reaper. Doesn't look like it. Now goes into a factory and starts a reactor, so he's going to be doing very aggressive Hellion build here.
And this changes everything. In a Terran versus Terran, you're usually well aware of what timings an opponent can hit, when exactly he's going to have his expansion, when the first medivacs are out there, when he could go into your main base with Hellions, with whatever, maybe a drop with Widow Mines or Hellbats. But this is completely different, and Ryung is probably just looking at this and asking himself, how much does this affect his income?
Yeah. That's what he's trying to figure out right now, and he's going to have to play a weird defensive game right now. He does go for a pretty safe command center and starts his own factory now, so as long as he's careful and patient, he should be able to defend what Marine King throws at him, but it's just a weird feeling, and Marine King is kind of getting into his head a little bit with this strategy.
I love this. This is just a classic Marine King that he's pulling here. It is awesome. And it's been quite some time when I've seen this for last time. I think it was actually when I came to Korea and online cast of the ESWC that they had when he did it last time that I saw him do it. But this is going to be awesome. We have, of course, now for Ryung already the expansion. Marine King is expanding into his main base now.
Yeah, he's going to take his own main, and he's going to have, of course, the full range of mineral patches there. And we have, for Marine King, a Hellbat drop. He's going into the armory right now. He already has the reactor set up for his starport. He could go into a regular Hellion drop first, and then go into the Hellbats, which it looks like he's going to do here as he's moving his Hellions across the map right now.
The armory is on the way. Of course, this reveals the strategy for Marine King. And this is going to be really interesting. So far, it really looks like Marine King benefits from a lot more gas that he was mining here as well. So he got the refinery a little bit earlier than his opponent, but he is still behind in harvesters.
Yeah, still behind in harvesters at 20 to 25. But now that his second command center is done, he will be able to start SCVs. There has to make an orbital first.
Marine King with a double Viking here. This will help him a lot. Usually when you're a Terran player and you are afraid that your opponent might drop you, you get one Viking, and then you, of course, try to shut down the medivacs as soon as possible. with a double Viking, we suddenly have Marine King in a position where he can take down Ryung's anti-air and then just camp the starport, or at least make sure that another Viking would not be able to do anything either.
Yeah, this is very true. I really like this. And even before he goes out to attack, he can use both Vikings to defend against any possible drop play that Ryung sends his way. So he sends them into both directions, one to the north, one to the south. And speaking of Ryung's aggression, he's sending these Hellions out a little bit right now. He wants to scout the Hellbats.
Yeah, but the Hellions on top of the ramp, they are just a little bit too good. You know what Marine King could also do? He could try, if there's an opening, to maybe even land the Vikings, go into assault mode and do a bit of damage to the SCVs at the natural or in the main base. I was thinking for a long time if we would see this a little bit more often, if Blizzard would maybe change the transition time from a flight mode to assault mode a little bit. That would be really interesting. That's one of those changes that is probably never going to come into play, but it's something I was wondering about. But
yeah, it's definitely a good talking point. There's so much possibility for Vikings as it is, but if they were changed a little bit more, I think they could definitely be stronger. He could try to use the Vikings to distract Ryung as well at the natural, for example, and then drop in the main when his units are pulled. We'll see what he does here. Ryung knows something's coming. He's very, very defensive at pulling all of his units in the main.
And here we go, Marine King trying to hit that timing with those Hellbats. He has the Vikings in position. They have been scouted by Ryung, and Ryung already has the third Viking out. Marine Kings isn't here just yet, and here we go. The first shots go up. Both of the Hellbats are on the ground, and now Ryung has to be really careful.
Yeah, Ryung has to be careful. He splits his units perfectly, though.
Great.
Takes out the Hellbats with no problem, but more Hellbats are walking in. It's not over yet.
But he is a lot faster with those Hellions, and he's just kiting the Hellbats. Ryung with a great defense here. Marine King dropping in supply already down to 47 against 63.
Yep, really, really nice defense by Ryung. He had the Vikings out. He killed one of the medevacs almost instantly and was able to kill one of the Hellbats that was inside of it. And then he just split his units like a champ against the attack.
Against Hellbat, it is so important that you split your units, that you use the range that you have with the normal Hellions, and that you make sure that you always kite as much as you can, since Hellbats are quite slow, and also with a reduced range, they are not really... You can't really get close to your opponent if he micros well, and this is exactly what Ryung showcased.
Now, Marine King is in a terrible position. He doesn't have a third command center, which is something that Ryung is already morphing into an orbital right now. He has more production, he has siege tanks out, and he's just looking very, very comfortable right now. We have Stim on the way for him as well. He's just going to sit back and take his lead. He's ahead in supply, he's ahead in workers, and Marine King is going to have to make something happen here with really good drop play, for example, or maybe even just catching him out of position in the middle of the map to be able to catch up here.
And Marine King's opening here with the lift at the command center looked quite sexy, but Ryung, on the other hand, he reacted perfectly here. And he had all the answers, so Marine King is now really in a tough spot. And it just shows how good Ryung is at defending. This guy is such a crazy good player. We have him with the double upgrades now, of course, also with the Stim. So time is running out for Marine King.
Yeah, he really needs to make something happen here, and he's going to try for it. Going out across the map right now with all 10 of his Hellbats, 4 of them in the medevac, 6 of them on the ground. And he may be able to catch Ryung off guard here, but if he doesn't do massive damage, and he's already been scouted, if he doesn't do massive damage here, he's going to lose this game.
That was a great SCV. He had the SCV in position, and it scouted the attempt of Marine King to put pressure on him once more. Here come now the Vikings. Good, getting the first shot off, and this, of course, makes sure that he can snipe that medevac as soon as he moves in.
Yeah, and he baited the boost as well.
If he doesn't take out those Vikings, and that's exactly what he's trying to do now.
Great snipe there by Marine King, forces the land as well, but there's so many siege tanks in position, this is not going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but at least he has the air dominant force here. He can, with those the Vikings, do quite a bit.
Good scan here, lets him know the drop is no longer part of the army, so he knows it's going to come from a different angle. He has a turret in place to the north.
The first few siege tank shots are being cut off here, but we have the medevacs trying to move in.
Yep, coming into the north here. Turret targets the wrong one, and he will actually get all 4 Hellions out, but what are they going to be able to do here? He needs to pull the SCVs.
The medevacs are already gone, and those Hellbats are immediately being attacked. Great play here by Ryung.
Yeah, Ryung just shuts this one down yet again. Very little damage taken. His command center that he made, his third command center, is kind of floating around, hidden to the south. He wanted to make sure Marine King did not spot that. Now he's going to be able to move it over and land it.
I like it, though. I mean, this is something that was really smart. He realized that Marine King would pressure him again and decided to just float it back a little bit so that it wasn't scouted. If Marine King scouts the command center and takes it down with Vikings and, of course, the Hellbats, then Ryung is in a bad spot, since Marine King has also a third command center.
Yeah.
But in this case, you can really see that Ryung is starting to pull a little bit ahead, especially with the upgrades that he has.
A very, very careful and calculated game by Ryung. And the army supply is actually slightly in favor of Ryung, but his composition is much, much better. Marine King basically has pure Hellbats. He is starting to get some siege tanks out right now, but there's way more tanks in the army of Ryung. 4-1 right now.
4-1 tanks, and let's not forget about the upgrades that he has here with the 1-1. He did start the +2 armor upgrade, and also combat shield is lining up very well. Also concussive shells.
Yeah, it looks like he probably tried to make the attack, but didn't have enough resources at the time and didn't realize it.
The Vikings scout the third base, but they don't go into assault mode. Ryung was already there with a small task force to make sure that wouldn't happen.
Now, this is really, really tense for Marine King right now. He's a little bit contained. He's trying to make something work with his Vikings, but he's stuck, and he can't really pressure Ryung directly because if he tries to go down his ramp, then he's going to get caught. The one thing he could try to do is do a big lift out of his main with dropships, but he doesn't have enough drops.
The scans are great here, revealing everything, and this is not an army that you want to engage, at least not at this point. 23 Hellbats. Marine King is adding even more now.
He's going to actually just go for it here, running in.
Dropping on top of the siege tanks with the Hellbats closing the distance.
Yeah, and he actually closes the gap quite nicely in supply here, taking out the tanks eventually, but there's just too much bio.
The bio is really his biggest problems with all those upgrades as well. They're just moving in, taking apart one Hellbat after another, and the siege tanks, they won't be able to stop this, I feel.
And the Vikings the Vikings just really did not participate in that fight. They kind of flew over to the side. If they were on the ground, maybe it could have turned the tide.
That's suddenly a 40 supply lead that Ryung has here against his opponent, and he's moving into the main base now. Here comes the Mana Mule being called down, and Marine King is even pulling SCVs.
Yeah, he's pulling SCVs here, trying to micro his Hellbats, but it's just not enough. Even a repair on the siege tank there. Marine King is making 6 Hellbats at a time. He's trying to spend his resources. He's trying to close that gap in supply again, but the momentum that Ryung has with that third base is just too much for him. He's about to have +2 armor as well.
There's no way for Marine King to really claim a third base. That's something that he just can't do with Ryung being down at his own ramp. So this is one of the things where Marine King he can't do anything. He's basically just waiting there to die. He wants to move out and take a third, but he can't because Ryung is in position. Sieged up with one tank, rallying more across the map to the top left. The only chance that Marine King has is this drop that we see now.
Yeah, and he could actually kill a ton of SCVs here. There's no real defense. There's only one Marauder, and he gets a lot of SCVs there. Not able to finish them off, though.
Yeah, he gets quite a few of them, but you can see that the Hellbats are just not fast enough. And now the next few of units for Ryung are moving in, trying to take down those Hellbats. But he has to be careful. He needs to micro them.
Yeah, and it looks like Marine King will lose one of those Hellbats there on the ground, but he boosts over, trying to catch some more of these SCVs. He doesn't have a lot of room to work with. There's turrets, there's a lot of bio.
Yeah, Ryung doesn't leave himself open to any kind of counter-aggression. And Marine King even trying to take out the base at the bottom left with his floating command center.
This is pretty risky, but it's smart considering that he's so desperate at this moment in time. It's hard for Ryung to finish the game because Marine King does have a lot of siege tanks up on the high ground as natural, and if he can hide that base down there to the left and keep it unscouted while continuing to harass, maybe, just maybe, he can get himself back into this game.
Yeah, he's 50 supply behind his opponent, and just look at the upgrades that we are seeing for Ryung. Going into +3 armor already, the second armor upgrade is done, and the attack upgrade is already halfway through. Marine King, on the other hand, is trying to go into the additional mech upgrades, and finally has the base at the bottom left. That's something that could be troublesome for Ryung if he doesn't scout it and work under false assumptions.
Yeah, very true. If he works under false assumptions like we saw yesterday with Jokji versus Hurricane, this sort of thing can actually lose you games, but it's been scouted, and he comes in here, no way to save that command center. It's already very low on hit points.
I think he saw it floating early on, and now Ryung is moving in, taking out the tanks on the higher ground at the cliff.
And the Vikings try to push him back. That's one advantage Marine King has. He does have control over the skies, which makes it very difficult for Ryung to finish him off. Look at all that energy on the command center, though, wasted all the mules.
Ryung has a 4th base at this point, and he knows that time is working in his favor. There is no reason for him to try to bully his way up the ramp. He can play a very cautious and slow game here.
Yeah, even has the sensor turret up. And he will probably start to make turrets very soon around Marine King's base so that he can't do things like this to boost his medevacs out. I mean, look at those SCVs just sitting there. He doesn't even know what to do with them. He can't get them out of his base. He looks like he's going to go for one final attack with this flank, but he's been scouted. Oh, no! Oh, is he gonna? Does he realize it? Is he going to go for it?
I don't think he saw it, did he?
Very much, barely not, but now he goes.
He's trying everything. Marine King once again with the drops. He's moving in, dropping those Hellbats.
A ton of AoE damage here. Marine King trying to break through. His tanks are having some trouble at the natural, though.
He's going for the flank, but the siege tank line of Ryung is still going strong.
Yeah, Ryung is going to eventually push this back. GG.
Marine King with an interesting strategy here on Icarus, an interesting opening, but Ryung just a bit too strong.
The Marine King's opening very, very unique. Never really seen anything like that before just yet on Icarus, but Ryung, with a great defense, very patient and cautious play, was able to take the win.
Yeah, great play. Really, really well done. And the opening point goes to Axiom-Acer, so this puts Prime already in a weird spot. We talked a bit about their strong Terran lineup, but if you are able to take out these Terran players, who else is there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's time for Prime to pull out maybe Creator here. I do not think you want to send another Terran against Ryung this early. You don't want to lose your important Terrans like you said, and you don't want to TBT against Ryung.
You know, I think in this team match it's really time for them to send out one of their Zerg players. We have Emir and we have Terror. They are not really all that known, and they are players that don't have a lot of experience, but at some point you have to use them.
Right, I agree.
If you are going up against a team like Axiom-Acer, you can really try to just train them to be a sniper for a certain player. That will give them the confidence that they need in a specific matchup, will give them the experience in the booth. And we always talked about how the first player, or when you approach the first match, you have always a plan A and a plan B. You're thinking about what is going on when we win the first match and what is going to happen when we lose it. So we might now actually see one of those two Zerg players being a sniper for Ryung, or maybe even one of the remaining Protoss players. Not necessarily Creator, but we also have, of course, Lucy on the roster, something that we could see.
Yeah, I think sending a Zerg player out here to get the experience is really important, because they don't really have a Zerg player right now that they can rely on. They used to have Boong Boong, who was pretty strong. They would pull him out from time to time, but he's not in the team anymore. He's on Azubu now, so they need some Zerg. They need to get a Zerg player in there, get him that experience, because if they don't do that, then everybody's always going to know all we have to do is prepare for Terrans and then maybe Creator, because that's what Prime has shown time and time again.
If I was a coach and I had to work with such a small lineup, I would definitely send out, if I lose in the first game, a sniper for the second, because that's the guy who can really practice. That's the plan B. That's the guy who, where the coach says, where Gerard says, okay, listen, you have one job. If Marine King loses, I'll send you out and you have to take down Ryung.
He has so much stuff he can prepare for. He can prepare a specific map, because he'll have the map choice. You know, there's only two things you can know absolutely in a team match. It's the first game, and then if you lose the second game. Those are the two things you can know. That's what's in your control.
And the second one should always be the easiest. As you said, you have the map choice, and your opponent can't prepare for you, because he has no idea who's going to come out. So Ryung, of course, prepared for Marine King, but he has no clue who's going to be the second player.
It's always the best time to send out a player. I want to continue on this point, because everything you're saying is exactly true. The best time ever to put a new guy out is on map 2. What is Gerard going to do? He sends Creator.
Creator early on.
I like this choice. You know, we talked a lot about them having a lack of Zergs, but in this case, Prime feeling a little bit desperate. They just want to knock Ryung down with a completely different matchup early on.
The only thing that I'm afraid of is that Prime will end up using the same 4 players in each and every matchup, because I feel that at some point in the GSTL, they have to make sure that they send out one of their lesser known players, one of their weaker players, to give them the experience. On the other hand, of course, they have 1 win and 2 losses in the GSTL, so if they want to reach the playoffs, they need a win. But the question remains, if you then reach the playoffs, can you really rely on the same 4 players in each and every matchup? Does that really work for you? It makes you just so predictable.
Exactly. Well, before we see what map Creator has picked and what strategy he's got planned, we are going to go into a 5-minute break. See you guys in a bit.
Our heart, our lives are hideous. If only you could love me sometime.